Kia ora whānau, here with PORTALOO Phil today, who's come all the way to Hawke's Bay up from Porirua, and really good to see you. Thank you very much for travelling all this way. We're here to talk today about the latest with Phil's investigative series featuring the New Zealand Police. So just a bit of back info. So we first met Phil down in Parliament earlier this year, where he had his eyes gouged by the police. He was pinned up against the Portaloos, hence the name PORTALOO PHIL. How'd you get that name, mate?
Well, this morning we didn't want to lose the Portaloos. They charged us with riot shields.
Were they trying to get the Portaloos?
No,
They were trying to get in.
They were trying to get me. And of course, when they came with their riot shields, they just pushed away the slighter people. As you can see, I'm not very slight. So I ended up backed up against the Portaloos, being told by the senior sergeant, fall back, and getting hit by shields.
But there was nowhere for you to fall back to. You were up against the Portaloo.
And then he started throwing left-hand hooks, and he got me at least 2 times, maybe 3, with a left-hand hook. Fell back, and I was trying to get my camera out. He hit me another once or twice. I'm a bit hazy at that stage, and then he gouged my eyes with both of his thumbs, and at that stage I couldn't take any more, so I charged the line, I pushed through them, and I ended up going down with 3 of them falling on me, and they arrested me. We went in the paddy wagon and went away, but as soon as they had arrested me, I was told by the other people who took the videos of me getting hit and everything that they immediately pulled back. So they were after me only. They had taken my tent mate and they were after me, I guess. My phone went flying. One of the police officers picked it up. When I got my gear at the central station, it wasn't there, so they've stolen my phone.
He was definitely black and blue when I first met him, so he's come a long way. He's definitely come a long way. And since then, do you want to just give a brief overview of what sort of happened relating to your charges since then?
Okay, so after I was charged, I went to court a few days later. I caught up with you there as well. I was charged with disorderly conduct, I think, or something similar to that. When I went in, the judge read 4 charges back to me.
So that was a surprise. That wasn't expected?
I wasn't, yeah, and
okay.
I was like, and he wanted me to plea, and I was like, I had to enter a no plea because I hadn't even looked at the charges that he was reading out, which were 2 counts of assaulting a police officer, 1 of resisting arrest, and 1 of disorderly conduct causing rioting or something like that anyway. But yes, that was the first time I went, and then 4 consecutive times I went into court, or Kevin Preston, who was my lawyer at the time, went in, and they just pushed it out and pushed it out and pushed it out for 9 months.
Sound familiar, anybody?
Yeah, I've
familiar?
heard that same thing from so many people, and it's to place stress on you, and of course that whole time you're under charges. So if anybody looks up your conviction history, it's sitting there right at the top that you are under charges.
My goodness.
And so, you know, I've been trying to get a job as well, and really affected me, and caused me a lot of stress. But recently, news has been better.
Some of you may have heard, we have seen a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We had some amazing news last week. Phil, would you like to share?
On Thursday, the police have withdrawn all charges against me. Now, up until August, Kevin Preston was taking care of my case. We discussed using legal aid instead, but of course with legal aid, I'm putting my faith in the government once again to assign me a lawyer, and Kevin said, oh, there's a good likelihood that I'd get you as legal aid, but I decided to raise the money, as a lot of you will have known. I raised just over $4,000, and I added $1,200 to that myself. I've got $5,300 sitting there. Now I'll be using those to take the battle back to the police. And looking to get the 2 officers involved in the assault charged. And of course...
And can we just name those officers now?
Yes.
Who were they again?
Sergeant Marcus Tuisano of Gisborne, and Constable Benjamin Jones, who I believe is here in Hastings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were the two involved in the assault. Of course, Sergeant Tuisano, the main assailant. The constable only hit me with that pole right at the end, just as I was being arrested. So it wasn't too bad, but he should never have used a weapon against me, especially a weapon he just found on the ground. That sort of says a bit about our police culture, I think.
So I think it's rather interesting, the charges that were put forward to you. So remind me what those were again, those 4 charges?
So 2 accounts of assaulting a police officer.
Yes.
1 of resisting arrest, and 1 of inciting violence, or disorder.
Riot or something.
Yeah, disorderly conduct, inciting violence. I think is the actual charge name.
To my knowledge, I've seen nothing of any officers being charged with anything for their participation in Parliament. We saw multiple assaults on members of the public. If there's anybody who should be charged with inciting a riot...
definitely the police, especially on the 10th of February and once again on the
March,
day it happened to me on the 22nd of February, and then later on the 2nd of March, definitely.
So what are your plans moving forward with this? Are you still planning?
So, when I discharged Kevin in August, what I did, because Kevin had advised me not to go to the police and asked for charges to be laid against these officers and made a formal complaint. So when I discharged Kevin, the very next day, and I did a video about it myself, I think Zeb actually put it out as well, I went to the police station, Portaloo, and I laid a formal complaint. And then...
Has there been any progression with that complaint?
The IPCA, in the interim, I've been working with them since March, in September the 21st, they sent to the police a recommendation that you must look into the assault against Mr. Peters. And so I put the formal complaint in on the 1st of August and didn't hear anything about it from the police until after the IPCA said, you guys need to look into this. And so there was a delay of nearly 2 months. I then received a letter from the Conduct and Integrity team from the police stating on the letter that the IPCA had told them to investigate, and that they were putting it under charge of an officer, Sergeant Dean Gorry, who was on holiday for 3 weeks. So they delayed another 3 weeks. By the time Dean got in touch with me, he wanted to do an interview and get a formal statement and everything from me. I was with Kane and Emma from the Tararua Freedom family in Paeatua, and I said, well, you'd have to come and meet me in Paeatua, or I could drive to Palmerston North and we could meet at Palmerston North. Dean wasn't interested in that. Even though he had offered to meet me at a place of my choosing, suddenly he wasn't interested in that when he found out where I was. He also, in his first email to me, said that he would be willing to do it remotely over video. So I said, why don't we do it remotely? Suddenly he wasn't interested in that. Delayed a further 3 weeks, and now we're getting towards the end of October, so 3 months after I originally laid the complaint. And he was, I'd like to do it next week with you. And I said, you know, I've been going through a bit of stress and mental health issues, and I was in a really bad place because they had once again pushed out the case to last week.
Delayed again, and
it was just causing me a lot of stress. And I said, look, at the moment I'm not in a good place for it, but I've already provided you all the video evidence, footage, and a written statement. Why can't we just use that?
Just on the topic of video evidence right now, I've had a little bit of an issue trying to understand this whole video evidence things, because you know so many people have had to struggle to find video evidence of the assaults that they received from the police back in Parliament there, and you know we're talking about Parliament building here, Parliament building in New Zealand, which must have the most top of the line security cameras all the way around it, you know, covering every inch of the streets outside of Parliament, and then all the buildings and organisations surrounding Parliament, they all had CCTV cameras out there. Now, a dairy gets robbed, you know, some member of the public gets assaulted, the police request that footage and they have it within a very good amount of time, you know, from what I've seen in the past.
Yep.
Now, in this particular case, with everything that went down in Wellington, all of a sudden, there's no CCTV footage whatsoever to access. Where is it all? Why is it not being requested by the police? Why is it not being, given to those members of the public who are facing assault charges from the police right now? And on that topic, I'm just going to add in as well, why is it that so many of those charges have been dropped?
Yes.
Joe Public goes to the police station, makes a false charge against someone, rape, assault, whatever. They go to prison for that, or they'll get a big fine. Now, how many charges have been laid from Parliament falsely? What's the repercussions for that? I would really like to know.
And just on that topic, see, I did a Official Information Act request requesting any CCTV footage, and the police got back to me after a month. I did it right early in September, so in early October they came back to me saying we have no CCTV footage from the Parliament area in the time frame that my assault occurred. And I found that very interesting, because it's not like they would have stopped filming on all those cameras. They'd be filming 24/7.
Absolutely.
That whole area. So and I've used the Official Information Act again, just going back to the Police Conduct and Integrity investigator Dean Gorry there. So because I wasn't available after he had prolonged it for 6 weeks at this stage, to come for an interview at his convenience, even though I'd put in a written statement and provided video, he basically emailed me going, well, that's your prerogative, then we can't do anything. And so the very next day I put in an official information request asking what had been done since I made the formal complaint on the 1st of August. Within the day he got back to me saying he would accept my written statement, and could I please print it out, sign it off and send it back. So he sent it to me and I edited it and did so. But yes, that's how the police are like.
It doesn't add up in my head, and I'm not overly educated in the area of how the police work and how the government works and all that sort of thing, but you see on TV how quick they manage to solve cases, but when the cases are against them, it seems to be a completely different cup of tea.
The idea of this conduct and integrity team and my dealings so far with them, they don't understand either of those words. They don't, their conduct is definitely anti-public, and their integrity, meaning their honesty and how they conduct themselves, I wouldn't consider it integrity at all. Deceptive, obfuscation, even trying to hide what's actually going on, ignoring the videos. Like Dean didn't want to watch the videos. He clearly did not. He wanted to have a statement. He wanted to have an interview. It's like my memory from 9 months ago, even though I've watched the videos and everything, have a pretty damn good memory of what happened, is still not as good as video evidence. Video evidence is better than memory any day of the week.
You've got it right there in front of you. Just watch the video. That's all the evidence you need. You just about don't even need a statement to go with that.
Exactly.
It shows you everything.
And I'd already put a statement through the IPCA to the courts and to the Conduct and Integrity team. Do you think maybe this request for another interview could be maybe a way for them to sort of catch you slipping up somewhere? That's exactly what I thought. And the reason why he wouldn't do the remote interview or come to Palmerston North is because he knew I'd be there with Kane, because I'd said I'm going to have a support person, Kane Alexander, with me. So obviously he didn't want that, because I said I'd have a support person who will be recording it.
Yes, and I would highly encourage that with anyone who's offered an interview with the police or even an interview with the media. Just make sure you do your own recording at the same time.
Absolutely.
These people tend to sometimes twist things around and just show the portions they like to. So it's good to have your own recording, first-hand recording, to be able to show that, hey, no, this is actually what happened. And you mentioned just before that, this case was 9 months in the making, right, before it got dropped? Was it 9 months?
Yes. To the day just about, the 22nd of February to the 22nd of November.
Stress, anxiety, I'm sure there were some tears involved, and I can only imagine how your mental health has just sort of declined.
It's gone up and down. There's been some good times, I've met a lot of people from the freedom community who have really uplifted me, but then some people who have associated with the freedom movement who are in it for various purposes, for making money, it disappointed me too. But yeah, real roller coaster, up and down all the time, and it's just good to be with people that I know and trust. And,
Absolutely.
you know, it's uplifting and keep the people that you know and trust around you.
Yes.
That's all I can say. Is
I'm interested to know, in when you made your assault complaint against the police, were you offered victim support of any sort?
No,
No.
never.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. From here, what are your plans? What do you have on your to-do list? What's next?
Well, Kevin Preston, the lawyer that I'd used up until August, always kept in touch with me. In fact, he told me Wednesday that they were going to drop the charges. I had to go to the courts to find that the charges had been withdrawn. The police didn't contact me, the courts didn't contact me.
Which is very interesting.
So rudely, they made me have to come all the way into the court to find that out. But Kevin had told me that that was what they were going to do, and he said to me, even though he wasn't representing me at the time, when he spoke to the prosecutor, he always asked about my case, because he's very interested in how my case turns out. It's got the most video evidence from the most angles of just about any attack that occurred. You know, we've got many attacks that happened over that period of time. It's just that mine sort of stood out as a single person being attacked in a large group that was caught from many different angles. So I was very fortunate compared to some of the people who have been charged, who don't have anything to protect themselves to fall back on, and have the police conspiring together to give statements against them. Like, I had a bit of falling out with Phil Kavanagh, and what happened to him was disgusting. He got jumped by the police, and then 4 officers made statements against him. He's got no evidence to protect himself, and that's not just going to be him. There's going to be multiple people in that same situation.
And I guess the one thing that would vindicate him would be that CCTV
Yeah,
footage
exactly.
that nobody's able to access.
Because they have no interest in getting it, and for a person to get it rather than the police or a government institution, it's really, really hard, because it can be private CCTV footage which the police will be able to access very easily,
Yes.
but a person, all they need to do is say, no, sorry, we can refuse to give you that. It's our
I'm not
business.
sure if you guys recall, but not so long ago, back when the lockdowns were happening, the New Zealand Police admitted to illegally accessing CCTV footage in order to identify and locate a vehicle with some persons of interest in it who were, what were they? They were thought to have broken
the Auckland's
the boundary
the
the boundary rules.
AFC.
But what the police did is they have privately contracted a couple of organisations to manage the CCTV, and they need to put in a legal request if they want any information from that CCTV footage. And what they did is they marked this vehicle as stolen, even though it was not stolen. They marked it as stolen just so that they could legally access and legally request this CCTV footage from this private company. And as soon as they had that footage, they marked the vehicle as not stolen. And they admitted to this. This was in the public mainstream media of New Zealand earlier this year, and it was very, very disappointing to read.
It was only about a month ago that
Yeah, it wasn't that long
finally
ago.
came out in the media, because it happened back in March, I think.
Yes.
Or April. It was quite a while ago that it actually happened, and they admitted to it.
Yes.
You know, 8 months down the track after they've already
right.
broken the law. And
So this just tells me, if the police and the government want to access footage, one way or another, they will.
oh yeah,
If they do not want to access footage, here's
Yeah.
where we are. Here's where we are.
So anyway, for me, I trust Kevin because of the amount of stuff that he's come back to me with and has been proven right. People said to me, you know, you've got to be very careful about words. And I am, you know, but I found him trustworthy. The only reason why I couldn't continue to use him after August is because he needed to be paid, and I didn't want to risk going to legal aid, which is why I started raising the money. So I've asked him about doing a prosecution, and he said he's willing to follow through with a civil
Awesome.
prosecution. So I'm going to use
Awesome.
the $5,300 that I've saved up already and continue to weekly put in $50. And,
Yeah.
you know, I might ask if other people want to donate, but at this stage, I'm just going to use what I've got and I don't want to
Pretty
put
good
any.
for now.
Yeah, I don't want to put
That's
any pressure on anyone else. I can put that pressure on myself now because the stress has been relieved. The charges that were, pretty much falsified charges against me are now gone, which makes me very happy. And of course, other people with more serious charges, hopefully that brings some light for them too.
Yeah.
Because my case was one of the cases where they laid some pretty thick charges on. And I know it wasn't just me, there were a few others too. But, it was charges laid on that were unjustified, that were provably within the day. Stuff had, released a video that went all around the world. I had people, from as far away as Denmark sending me messages.
Wow.
So, it was our, woman getting run over by a horse, if you compare it to the Canadian protests, that was one of the ones after the 10th, of course, or the 10th of February. There were some pretty horrific things that happened then, but not as blatantly obvious and criminal. And the police acted as criminals on that day, and definitely on the 2nd March. There's some real criminal behaviour by the police. And we need to stand strong together, and I was hoping that when my charges were dismissed, other similar charges would be too. So I'm hoping others.
Yes, well, there has been quite a few charges that have been dropped, isn't there?
Apparently,
Quite a number.
more than 50% of the charges and just about all of the trespass charges have either been dismissed or, unfortunately, they got diversion, which I think is unfair because the people who got diversion from those charges still show that they were guilty of the charges, where they should just be removed from their records completely.
Yeah. So, getting diversion, a lot of people I think aren't quite aware, but diversion is actually an admission of guilt. It is not a no contest. Diversion, when you accept that diversion, that is you admitting guilt. Yeah, be careful with those diversion charges.
Yeah.
Phil, do you have any advice for anyone who might be going through something similar to you, who may not have had their charges dropped yet?
Use as many resources as you can. There's lots of good community law places. Your local Citizens Advice Bureau can put you in touch with those. If people like VFF who helped me out to put me in touch with Kevin, touch base with VFF. They might just help you out just with that initial phase of doing your pleas and everything. But if you haven't used them and 9 months down the track, you're still under charges, do touch base with VFF. They might be able to put you in touch with someone who's very proficient at defending these charges, because I think Kevin was. I've heard mixed reactions, but from everybody that I know that had Kevin help them get rid of their charges altogether, they're very happy. And a couple of hours with a lawyer might save you a lot of stress, but might save you, not being able to go to America or places that charges like this, they'll just flag you before you even get on the plane. So it can affect your life for a long time to have stupid charges that should never have been laid against you. And good legal advice is quite easy to come by in New Zealand. We have a lot of ways to get it. So don't think you have to do it all on your own. There's a lot of groups and organisations, and there's a lot of people like myself. If you need advice, we're here for you. We need to support each other. Is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just finally, on a personal note, how are you personally? All these charges aside, all the bullshit aside, how is life looking? How's 2023 looking?
It's looking a lot better now.
Yeah.
I was in a dark place only 2 weeks ago. I was very depressed. I was finding I'd pick up and try and look at Facebook, and I'd read one thing and I'd just turn off my phone. And as you know, Zeb, I was having difficulty even communicating with my good friends in groups that we're in. And since Wednesday, since hearing about it from Kevin, and I told my mum, she was rapt. Of course, Zeb's met my mum, she's quite elderly.
We had breakfast this morning.
And it's stressful for my nearly 80-year-old mother to think that I could end up in prison or get large fines.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know, at this stage of my life. Yeah. So that's a real weight's been lifted.
Yeah.
And I got out and I've come to the Hawke's Bay to enjoy the nice sun in the Hawke's Bay for a little while.
Yes, it's amazing. It's so amazing having you here. It's so good. And yeah, your parents, it's so cool. Your mum specifically, she's gorgeous. Anything else? No? I think we'll leave it there. I think that was pretty good. Thank you very
Awesome.
much, Philip. That
Thanks
was
for having me.
wonderful.
Kia ora whānau, thank you for watching. To support Zeb Jackson Live, please head to Patreon and hit the subscribe button. Much appreciated. A huge thanks to Yvonne for being the first Patreon subscriber of November. Kia ora.